Yo, what's poppin'? All my peeps, it is I, your host with the most, Renaissance man who always thinks he can, and your champion of the peeps, Patty Pitts. Back with a special edition of No Nights Off. As you can see, I'm not joined by the best of the West. You can't forget about Sara Marshall. I'm actually joined by the God Queen herself, MLW featherweight champion, DelmiEXO. Delmi,
Hey,
thank you for coming on by to the StreamYard.
thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, it's great. It's so happy for you to be here today. We interviewed BRG a couple times, and as people who are familiar with this channel, we talk a lot about the other two promotions, but we don't really talk a lot about the indies. And it may not be Sarah's forte, but it is mine. I've gone to my shows, and I subscribe to IWTV. I do.
There you go.
And yeah, and I sometimes want to talk about that and want to highlight different wrestlers on the independent scene because they're grinding just as hard. All right, guys. So I invited Delmi here today to talk about that, and she got some great shit going on with MLW. Also, you were in last I checked or last I saw, you're beating up your sister Ashley Vox in the last sister standing match, which I
Yeah.
watch. Incredible. So we need a highlight, and I want to just talk about that. And tell me, introduce yourself here to the peeps who don't really know a lot about you or even what you do, like where you are.
Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm the God Queen DelmiEXO, as he's mentioned before. And part of my journey has brought me to a lot of different opportunities that I've gotten in wrestling. I've been able to tour Canada, Germany, Japan, and I am currently signed with Major League Wrestling, which is typically based out of the Northeast. But this year we've been touring and tearing up the country. I mean, this year just started. We're already going to be planning on going to Los Angeles for the first time ever. We got a lot of big things coming for Major League. I am currently also the two-time featherweight champion.
It is right. It is two-time. Did
Yeah.
hear that. Two-time champ. And you got a lot of competitors on your back. You got a big fight coming up at Battle Riot, and
Yes.
it's interpromotional. Crazy shit.
Interpromotional. Speaking of Los Angeles, at Battle Riot, I'm going to be able to face off against Tokyo Joshi Pros, Shoko Nakajima. It's a huge opportunity. Tokyo Joshi Pro is one of those promotions over in Japan that has, really elevated Joshi wrestling in that area for years now. Like it's been around forever. I actually was first exposed to TJPW
Hmm.
back in my Chikara days, and that was when I was in my first like 4 years of wrestling. They had brought a couple of the Joshi over to wrestle there, and I was probably my first like experience in witnessing them live and in person. And ever since then, like I've just been head over heels for that type of wrestling and that type of style.
What was it like to train with them? Because the Japanese sounds crazy from what I've heard.
It's a different level of intensity. So,
Yeah.
you have your wrestling in America where everyone kind of they have their legitimate job that they go to, like their 9 to 5 or something like that, and then they come out of that and they'll go to training. And you have different people who are doing it for different reasons. Some are doing it for a hobby, some are doing it because they like are very diehard and they are trying to get to that next level. In Japan, it's one or the other. You either finish high school or your next secondary school, which would be like college,
Mhm.
is wrestling school. Like it is treated like that. It is treated like a sport. You go there to become a professional wrestler. And I think that level of professionalism and dedication is just so much more appreciated over there than it is in a few different countries. But yeah, it was a
Have
different
you?
level of intensity.
Oh, I've heard stories and just hear stuff about how it's just so different from this style. Have you gone over to Japan yet?
Yes, I was able to go with Marvelous Pro Wrestling. So
Oh,
they're a company, they've been getting a lot of highlight working with West Coast Pro out on the west side.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I've heard story like people going to Japan and it being a life-changing or experience in the sense of how they train and how you view, the style. It's something that I could not imagine. It's insane to me. So that's insane. So yeah, um that's crazy. Like that style. So you got her Battle Riot April 9th
Yes.
defending your title. And you got that, but I was watching Super Fight, and I wanted to hear what you had to say, but then you were just attacked out of nowhere. All right, like I was like, all right, let's see what she's got to say. Cut a promo, and then just a flying body, like Terra Zap. Like, who is that?
Absolutely insane. Tara Zepp is she's a deathmatch baddie in the making, I guess. She is someone who is not afraid to, do the most to her opponent to come out with that win. Um, we do have a match from Atlanta that, I'm waiting for it to premiere. But when it does get announced, definitely check it out. That was like insane. Um, she's one
Was
that I'm
it?
looking forward to watching grow more. I know she
Mhm.
jumped me.
Yeah, not cool. Not
Not
cool.
cool, but first impression kind of let me down, but I've seen her stuff. I follow her on Instagram and I really like her style and I respect that hardcore gritty style, as you can probably imagine I do.
Yeah, yeah, you can get hardcore. It's in because is that a style that you found that you were into and like you liked more than you thought you would?
I would say so. I feel like it definitely gets a bad reputation, or like especially when I first started training, it was definitely something that like you didn't teach someone who was like learning how to wrestle that style, because that's kind of like you always think
Hmm.
of like longevity in wrestling nowadays, especially with like the opportunities everyone has now. It is more long term than it is short term, and so you try to stay away from that hardcore style because you want to be able to do this for a long time. You don't want to
So yeah,
burn yourself out.
yeah.
But the more I've done it, the more I get the itch for it. And so right
Hmm.
now, I'm honestly just waiting for the next opportunity.
You're
Just
you're waiting for that
smash someone with a
yeah.
sledgehammer.
Oh, so that's your weapon of choice, sledgehammer.
Sledgehammer's next.
That's funny. That's awesome. Sticking with MLW because you are working on with Cesar,
Yes.
and I'm enamored with him anytime I watch him on screen because the way he just can control the crowd and get you to, draw you in to what he's saying. And obviously what he did with Lucha Underground was incredible. What's it like working with him and picking his brain?
He's honestly so calm backstage. You like, there actually isn't really much of a picking his brain because he's just like a professional. Like, it's turned off backstage. Like, he could be the calmest guy. And
Yeah.
then when we go out there, I'm like, who is this man that's like yelling? And I'm like, it gets me hyped because
Yeah.
he believes it so much in that moment and he just has so much energy and he doesn't hold back. And so like
Wow.
it's not so much as picking his brain, it's like watching like when you're in that moment with him and like learning to like try to match that energy. So
Mm.
for
Yeah.
me, like that has been like the most helpful.
To match his energy, I feel like that's two people turned up to 11. That's just so much energy. I don't know how you imagine it. It's insane to me.
I'm
Just what
trying.
the passion that he
Yeah.
has
Yep.
when he has a mic or if he's in a segment backstage or whatever, he's willing to go there, and that's something that as the fan watching, it's really cool to see him go that far and to really get you hooked in.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so working with him was something that I want because I watch him and I'm like that's insane. And MLW as a whole, it's something that I started watching obviously because BRG. He's like, "Hey, I'm here now." So I'm like, all right, and then I'll check it out, see what's going on, and I get to see him doused in honey, which it was awesome. It really was great. But um, you know, not only that, him aside, I just am enjoying the product as a whole. There are a lot of big stars there, from different, years, experience, whatnot, but then younger stars as well, like yourself, who, yes, have been going years and years now, but are still not at their prime. What's it like to be in that locker room of, with so many hungry superstars?
I think for the women's locker room, because we do have separate locker rooms, most of the venues that we have. For the
Hmm.
women's locker room, like me and Janai definitely go into, big sister mode where we will do the most for like any girl who's coming in that day. Like we'll just
Hmm.
be like, try to give them the most like welcoming energy and try to like make them feel like part of the journey and stuff like that because you never know who can be added on. Like me and her both contracted with MLW, but we would love to have more women added on so we can like have more of a diverse like roster for ourselves. And so like we always are just like, very like welcoming and trying to make it fun and trying to make the most with them. And then for the men and the women, like everyone just gets along so well and everyone's able to like joke and kid around and like offer help. Like there's always like good feedback giving back around.
Hmm.
Um uh I know he's like known as like Ricardo Rodriguez, but
Oh,
his
yes.
he's like one of the guys who will like he works a lot with the women and he's like always there to like help us out with ideas or like putting things together and like even the guys who are filming your like segments backstage and your promos backstage or they're just so like giving to their time. They're like, did you want to go again? Did you want to film another take? They don't
Hmm.
ever rush you. They don't ever judge you if you mess up. It's never everyone's just so chill and they're so like we're putting the best product together.
And yeah, I can definitely see that, on screen, that it just gives a different feel to what I'm watching, whether it's on Netflix or it's on TBS or, even TNA or whatever. It just has it. You have your own unique brand.
Mhm.
And it's like I come to watch that because I want to see that, and it's someone who was not really big into the indie scene before college, even,
Yeah.
to just get a little peek of that is really cool to see. um, and a lot of people that I've been seeing in MLW that have popped up, like yourself, I've seen in Limitless when I went in
Yeah.
to go to those shows with my friend up in Maine. And those shows, to me, it gives like a different perspective from what we're seeing outside. I remember seeing you and Becca as well. Those were like you guys are the two like women wrestlers that I remember the most from Limitless. you know she's made her, been in MLW a little bit. What's it like working with her?
Becca's someone who just always brings it and she's always has like the great intensity. Like there's always something like creative that you can do with Becca. She's such an elite level athlete,
Hmm.
as like you've been able to see, but like, wrestling with her is always just like she wants to show up that day.
Mm, yeah, you can definitely see that.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. It's nice that it's great to see other talent. What I mean? It's just great to expand your horizons. I always say that to everyone who comes into this channel and talks about whatever promotion they're into or just the WWE or whatever it is. I always tell them to expand because there's something that someone else is doing that you're not seeing. And I just think that's like really cool, and a lot of stuff that you guys are doing MLW, a lot of people aren't doing. And like, for instance, the battle royal, the whole point of the event on April 9th. Um, do you see yourself getting in that, man? I know you got a match with Shoko, and
I would
that's gonna be a match, but
I would
you want to
love
get in there?
to get in there because Taya Valkyrie got to go in the last year she was with MLW. She got to be a part
Hmm.
of it, and I'm like, ah, That'd be so
Yeah.
cool. But I mean, me and Janai are kind of like fighting and like butting elbows. Like, I want to get in there. I want to get in
Get
there.
both you in there. It's just you
Yes.
have to. She and you mentioned her. That's someone that I didn't see, obviously, when I went up to my shows and made this. And you said big sister vibes. She's a scary looking girl on screen. I don't want to meet her in a dark alley.
She's
You
a
know, what's a
stallion.
stallion? Her kicks, the move, like being in the ring with her must be, a
Brutal.
treat. Well, that too. I mean, a brutal from a physical standpoint, but working with her, like, what kind of magic do you guys just make in the ring?
I feel like we have the same vision whenever we have to like we've had to work with each other for a lot and like we just always want to like deliver. Honestly,
Hmm.
like every time we've like faced each other, it's always been like we're gonna deliver. And like we're not gonna
Hmm.
hold back. We're not gonna like pull punches. And it's apologize later.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever gets the job done. Is she the hardest hitting girl that you've been in the ring with?
Yes, for sure. 100% the toughest. I actually even up there with the guys. I don't think
Really?
I've done intergender. I don't think I've ever been hit as hard as I've been hit by her.
Wow. And you've been in the ring with Rip Bison,
Yeah.
which that man I bet hits hard. He just
Yeah.
gives off that vibe. What what do you what's it like doing the intergender stuff? Because that's something that I didn't think I would be a fan of until I saw it live. And it's been like what's it like doing, going into that mode?
Honestly, it's some of the safer matches I have. Like at least like for me, a lot of the men that I've been able to wrestle are really like protective and safe of like what they're doing. They don't ever like take liberties with you.
Mhm.
And they're very creative with the way they do things because it's basically a big man, little man match. So you have
Yeah.
different versions of like what your moves look like. Like me doing something where I lift someone up isn't going to get the same reaction as when I lift up a girl. It's still going to be cool, but when I lift up a guy, oh, everyone thinks I'm
Oh,
going to
that's gonna
fuck him up,
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it adds a more like different intensity. And then the same thing with a guy, like he could be giving me the safest like back bump, but because he's giving it to me, it looks that much more devastating.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Who's the
it's
he who's the heaviest guy you've ever lifted?
oh, I'm trying to think right now. I think we're a bison.
Really? You
Yeah,
got
I think
him up.
I think pound for pound, he was the heaviest because like if they're bigger, I wouldn't like lift them, like per se. Like I wouldn't do that to their size and take away from that. I would just like do a different
Yeah.
maneuver. But definitely him. Although I think he was 220, and I think right now Mike Scaros, who I'm facing next Saturday, is sitting at 230. And I do plan on picking that big motherfucker up. So,
Definitely get him up in
Yeah.
that dummy driver. Let's go.
Yes. I'm trying to
I wanna
win that
s
title.
Let's go. Yeah, add more. You got the MLW one. Let's add another title to the collection.
Yes.
Let me see what I wanted because I didn't know this, and I don't know. I didn't know that you and Ashley were sisters. I did not know that when I first started watching. What was it like to start your wrestling career with your sister?
Um, very, very supportive.
Mhm.
Like, I'm glad I had it that direction because I was so young when I started. I was only 17. And so I always had like a shadow watching me. I always had my older sister.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
very fortunate.
You guys we went all over. I mean, the places that you went, Impact, facing off against some big names, ROH, GCW, like those names, like to be there with your sister, like that's something that a lot of people I think would have. What was some things that you learned from her that have helped you in your career now?
I would say probably her friendliness.
Mhm.
She she was a popular girl in high school, which sounds
Okay.
very funny, but she has a really good way of making everyone feel like they're her best friend when she enters a room.
Mm.
And that sounds
Okay.
like that's not the most important thing in wrestling, but honestly, like in wrestling, being personable is like super important,
Yeah.
especially in the locker room. So I would say that.
That was yeah. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know.
Mhm.
I say that all the time. My dad taught me that one. You know, and you tag team, but you also faced off. I alluded to at the beginning of this, especially in a hardcore match. I can't picture my brother. I mean, there's a little bit of an age difference between my brothers and I, 16 and 13 years. So we didn't have the fighting as kids. You know,
Yeah.
they were basically just like big uncles that lived in the house. What was it like to get that hardcore, you know, in the ring with your sister?
Well, it's funny you say that because me and Ashley are 7 years apart.
Oh,
And she always hit me so hard. Like we would have, we would always like brawl, and she would always be
yeah.
the one to take it too far and hit the hardest or try to get the last hit. So honestly, like that was all like the longest receipt from all that time growing up as her little sister was like, "Oh, I'm gonna hit you so hard."
I'm gonna right there. I'm gonna give you the biggest bruise right in your arm. Just
Yes.
let you remember, make you remember that one. That's incredible. I couldn't imagine. I just am picturing like to. I feel it's so cool to have a moment like that with you, especially some you know, in a promotion like that where she was obviously, uh,
The
you know,
girl.
well, the girl, yeah,
Uh,
literally, and then you came in, and I would say you were, you know, up there as popular and all that. You know, it's a really cool thing. Well, and yeah, it's a really cool thing to see that. Um, and yeah, I just got that. Um, yeah, it's great to see. Um, the only other thing I really wanted to ask was you. What is your vision in the next 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? You're doing great things in MLW. You got your match with Shoko on April 9th at Battle Riot. But where do you see the God Queen in 5 years?
Oh man, I have not been asked this one yet. And I think I've given myself like 2 years so far of like planning, but I haven't looked past 5. Just because I
Okay, we'll
don't.
give two. We'll
Okay,
give
we'll
two.
give 2.
We'll give
So
two. I'm here for the beeps.
2, I would love to go back to Japan within the next 2 years. I would love to
Mm-hmm.
do another tour somewhere and return there. Um, I would love to go to Mexico within the next few years. And then
Mm-hmm.
from there, like kind of see like where else needs me. Like there's a few places in America that I have yet to wrestle. I know I've been fortunate enough to wrestle like in a lot of different places. Like I've touched the West Coast, I've touched the Midwest, I've been down south, but like get any of those little states that I've missed and stuff like that. Continue touring with MLW and, take the company to the limit. Let's see where we can get this. Let's build that women's division so that way if like God forbid I ever like have to leave that behind or like if I do ever move on to another company, like at least there's other people who are there that can have that foundation that me and Janai built and they can
Hmm.
take over and they can flourish and they can make their own stories now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Who's someone that you haven't gotten the ring with that you would like to?
Man, there's so many people who I have yet to wrestle. Um, I would say, oh man, I have never had a one-on-one match with Chris Statlander,
That would be
and
cool.
that would be awesome because
That
I
would
was
be
always around her when she was around. And so as the God Queen, I never got to have a match with her. I had a match when I was like, we were both still developing. So it
yeah.
wasn't our best performance, but like going now, like that'd be so amazing to bring those two like new entities together.
She's
Deanna Perrazzo, I've never wrestled one on one, so that would also be amazing. Like, there's a lot of people who I want to wrestle, and it's hard to pick one to be like the top, but those are
yeah.
some off the top of my list.
Who who's the best? Who's your favorite? I don't want to say best. That's two, but like who's your favorite person that you've gotten the ring with?
favorite person. Charlie Evans, because her mind was so like deeply layered. So Charlie Evans as like, and like those were like different matches where there was multiple people in it too, and like she was always able to like piece things together so beautifully. And so I would love, like, now that she's doing more of a singles and I'm doing more singles, like that'd be cool to wrestle her as like a one-on-one and just to see what that looks like.
What's your favorite memory from your career so far? What's the one that, if someone asks you what's your favorite moment so far in your career, what would it be?
I would say debuting in Japan, because that was my dream when I signed up to wrestle.
Just to where in Japan did you fight?
I wrestled in First Ring, which is a like normal, it's a very popular venue over there. And I
Okay.
believe that was in Shinkaba or Shinjuku.
Oh, wow. What year was that?
2020. That was the beginning of 2020.
Wow. You're a Ryan Cosen 2020. You had a 2020. That's geez, that's a hell of a start to your 2020s to wrestle in Japan. Knock that off the list.
Yeah.
And then boom, gone. Well, yeah, that's Delmi. Thank you for stopping by for this little
Yeah, of
interview.
course.
Really appreciate it. And I'll give you the platform once again to tell the peeps here at No Nights Off where they can find you and not only follow you on social, but check out your matches.
Yeah. Everyone, you can check me out. It's at DelmiEXO. That's EXO for my last name. And that's the same for my TikTok, my Instagram, my Twitter, or X, depending on how you like to say that. And all my YouTube matches are on under DelmiEXO, or you can subscribe to iwtv.live. Just $9.99 a month, and you can check out a bunch of matches from there. Pro Wrestling Grind has a lot of my like main matches that are very like strong style base, or you can check us out on MLW Major League Wrestling.
Do that. You got April 9th, Battle Riot. You take on Shoko. I'm going to be watching that for sure. And I'm going to have my fingers crossed that you get yourself in that 40-man battle royal.
Yes, I want to be in it.
I want you to be in it. I want to see you throw BRG over the top rope.
Court, put me in.
Tell me, thank you so much. And for anyone who's watching this, be on the lookout for our next stream whenever you are watching it. If you're watching it on a Monday, we're back on Tuesday. And if you're watching on a Wednesday, we're back on Thursday. And if you're watching on Friday, we may be back on Saturday. I don't know. Sunday. You got to find out and you got to subscribe. So thank you guys for tuning in. God bless. Remember that you can do it. All you got to do is try. See you on the next stream.